It's been some time since I last posted a video, but I wanted to do this one. I'm going to be ranking the various ships in the DDLC universe on a tier list. Now, first of all, I just want to say, though, that I wanted to do this on tierlistmaker.com, but to make an account on there, you need a Twitter account, and I got banned from Twitter like the first day I joined, so that's not going to happen. So I sort of made this template on my own, which is why it looks kind of rough. So I apologize for that, but can't be helped. Secondly, I want to say though that this list is basically just my opinion. So if a ship you like is ranked low, then please don't be angry. The way the tiers work is C is the middle tier. It's a ship which I don't like and I don't dislike either, so I'm sort of neutral towards. Tier D is a ship I dislike. There's no tier for things I hate. I don't hate any of these. Tier B is for a ship I like. Tier A is for a ship I love. And Tier S is for the best ships of them all. Now, in these ships, I'm only going to be ranking characters who are in the DDLC universe. As in, inside the game of DDLC, I'm not including characters from the Metaware Enterprise Solutions company. And what I'm basing these rankings on is mostly how canon the ship is. Like in the story of DDLC in canon, how would this couple fit in the hierarchy? And also a bit on how I feel the two people would mesh together. Now, there's an exception to the only characters in DDLC thing. I am also going to be including the player, as in you or whoever is playing DDLC, on the tier list. So, without further ado, let's begin. The first ship is Monica and the player, as in you who's playing the game. I believe this belongs in the S tier because, one, it's extremely canon, though, that Monica likes the player and not the main character. And also, I might be a bit biased because I myself am a Monica fan. I think Monica is best girl, but let's go on to the next one. Next up on the tier list is Sayori and the main character of DDLC. I just feel like the two of them do belong together. And by the main character, I mean the protagonist of the game, not the player who's playing the game. The reason for that is it's clear, though, that they're childhood friends. They've been together for a long time. And the game also seems to want the two of you to come together. Sayori seems to really like the MC more as compared to her other friends. And even the MC seems to like Sayori more than the other girls, as evidenced by how he reacts when she's gone. So yeah, I would definitely put that at S tier. Okay, so 3 ships for A tier. There's Sayori with the player, Yuri with the player, and Natsuki with the player. Of course, you as the player can like any of the characters, but the thing is, Monica is the only one who's self-aware and sort of reciprocates love to the player, with the possible exception of Sayori at the very end. But that's only on one route of the game and not on the true route. So I'm also going to put Sayori and the player in the A tier. So the reason why these aren't S tier is just because, well, the girls themselves aren't aware, though, that it's a game, again, with the exception of Sayori for a bit of the game. So they don't exactly reciprocate everything to you, the player. What they're doing in game is reciprocating their feelings towards the MC. Now, the MC or protagonist character is a stand-in for you, so I will put these in A tier, but I don't think they belong in S tier because of that. Next up is Yuri and the main character and Natsuki and the main character. The thing is, I don't like these ships as much because although they're technically canon in the game, I feel like the game wants you to be with Sayori more than these two. And the thing is, it's also kind of unrealistic, I feel, though, that Yuri and Natsuki, who have only known the main character for like 3 days, somehow fall in love with him that fast. Like, I mean, I get that it's a visual novel, but it still seems a bit unrealistic, and I don't think their pairing is as strong as MC and Sayori. Because the protagonist and Sayori have known each other for a long time, it kind of makes sense, though, that their relationship would evolve into a romance. Given their past history with each other, I do feel like Yuri as well as Natsuki could be with the main character, but we don't exactly have enough time to see them grow together exactly and see romantic feelings form. It feels more like a crush rather than the beginning of a true relationship. But I do feel with time these two shippings could work, which is why they're in the B tier. And in the D tier is Monica and the main character. I don't feel like the two of them belong together. First of all, there's no route in the game for the main character to be with Monica. And Monica is self-aware. She likes the player, not the main character. It's kind of a pet peeve of mine in mods where they show that Monica is with the main character or the basically your sprite in the game rather than trying to be with you. In a way, you could say though that the main character is supposed to be a placeholder for you, so the two of them could be together. But when Monica takes control of the game, she gets rid of the main character. She just wants to be directly with you and not with your placeholder. So yeah, that's why this belongs in the D tier. Also, I realized at this point while I was making this list that Monica's sprite is a lot smaller than everyone else's. And that's why her head seems so much smaller than the main character's. Which is why I'm going to be using a different sprite for Monica in the other ships. Okay, so just as a sort of introduction to this, I am going to be pairing the girls together. Now, some people might have a problem with this because there's nothing in-game to suggest that any of the girls are bisexual, except I think maybe Monica, who likes the player regardless of gender. I mean, it's clear the girls like the main character, so they're into boys, but there's nothing explicitly stating that they're into girls as well. So almost all of the pairings of the girls together are basically non-canon in a way, with maybe the exception of one, but I am going to entertain them at least for the purpose of this video. And first up we have Sayori with Monica. I'm putting it into D tier. The reason for that is, though, a lot of people feel like Sayori and Monica could be together because the two of them have a lot in common. Both of them tried to make the club together. They're both kind of self-aware. Well, Monica's fully self-aware, but Sayori can be self-aware. So some people think, though, that the two of them could end up together. I personally don't like this ship. And the main reason is because Monica did some nasty things to Sayori. And that resulted in Sayori, well, you know, I want to keep this video monetized, but at the end of Act 1, we all know what happens to Sayori. And that's Monica's fault. And so if you're pairing Sayori with Monica, you're basically telling Sayori to get with someone who did something rather horrible to her. And if you're going to make the argument that Monica did not think Sayori was real, so that justifies Monica's actions, then why should she be with Sayori? I just personally think Sayori deserves a bit better than to be with someone who did something that horrible to her. Now, I know couples get into fights. Sometimes someone might do something horrible to the other person. But what Monica did to Sayori was, really evil, basically. And I don't think that's something... Maybe... You know what? I actually think maybe Sayori might be able to forgive Monica. But just because she might forgive Monica, I don't think, though, that she would accept being in a relationship with her. Like, forgiving someone is one thing, and getting together with them is another thing. So, yeah, that's my opinion on that. So, next up, I'm ranking Yuri and Sayori and Natsuki both in the C tier. In the game, I don't really see anything which leads, you to believe, though, that maybe these two could be a pair. I mean, Sayori is pretty happy-go-lucky, I feel. Like, if she swung that way, she might be able to get with any of the girls. But it seems like more of a caring friendship that Sayori has with Yuri and Natsuki rather than a relationship. And maybe you could argue, though, that since Sayori's writing style of poetry is kind of similar to Natsuki's, maybe they could get together. But that's just saying poetry styles. And I don't really consider that into my rankings. And the reason for that is, although the game does sort of pair you off based on the poems you write, I don't think that's how stuff works in real life. And even if you don't like the writing style someone else has, doesn't mean you can't be with them. So, yeah, both of these are in the C tier. I don't see any evidence for them, but I don't see any real reason why they shouldn't be together either. So that's why they're in the C tier. Okay, so next is Yuri and Natsuki, which I'm placing in the B tier. And the reason for that is their shipping is kind of canon. Like, I know they don't get along in the game if you're on one of their routes, but they do sort of, like, try to patch things up. if you're on the Sayori route, for example. And I think people like them because of that, because they think opposites attract. So, they might not get along initially, but maybe they could learn to get along. The reason I'm putting this into B tier is if you've seen my DDLC iceberg video, you'll see one of the entries says Natsuri is real, as in their shipping is real. Basically, the story goes, though, that Dan Salvato, the creator of DDLC, said in a fan convention that Natsuki and Yuri hang out after school, and also that they may or may not have kissed. I think that might have been a joke, and I'm not even sure if the story about him saying that at a fan convention happened. But, I'm willing to accept this as sort of canon then, since the creator said so. Or apparently said so, at least. So that's why I'm putting their ship on the B tier. Next up is Yuri and Monika. I believe that they belong in the D tier. For the same reason, though, that Sayori and Monika belongs in the D tier. Monika did something bad to Yuri and made her, well, And even if their style of poetry is sort of similar, I don't think, though, that that's enough to mitigate what happened to Yuri. And I don't think Yuri should be with Monika because of that. So, yeah. Lastly, we have Monika and Natsuki. And I'm going to put them in the C tier because Monika didn't exactly finish Natsuki off. So I feel like there might be some room for reconciliation there. But I still don't think, though, that the two of them fit well together. I feel like Natsuki is the least likely to forgive Monika for what she did, actually. But given, Monika wasn't as bad to Natsuki, I'm going to put their ship in the C tier. So that is it for my tier list. This is the finished tier list. And like I said before, this is all my opinion. So if you feel like I ranked a couple wrongly, then feel free to talk about it in the comments. Say why you think I ranked them wrongly and why you think they should be higher. I just ask that you keep all conversations civil. Again, this is just an opinion. Please don't be toxic in the comments. And I just realized something. I made a big mistake. There's someone I'm forgetting. Or actually, there's a ship I'm forgetting. I feel so stupid for forgetting. I mean, of course, Mr. Cow and Sayori's duck, they of course belong together. And their relationship is an undisputed S tier ship. There's no even arguing about that. So, yeah, now we have a completed tier list. Thank you all for watching. Do please leave your comments down below. Please leave a like and subscribe if you want more DDLC content. Again, thank you all for watching.